Welcome back to Rock Doc's Reading Room. All right, where were we? Okay, so I've taken the job as tour manager for Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and now I've moved to London. Very exciting. You can imagine London in 1972. I was welcomed with open arms. We had a beautiful office on Curzon Street. They gave me this great engraved pen as a gift, which I wish I had kept, and of course I've lost it by now. But it was all very exciting, and we were preparing for a European tour in about 3 weeks to a month's time. And the group decided that part of the tour would be in Italy. And being Emerson, Lake and Palmer, they decided that they wanted to do Rome in a big way. There's an incredible site in Rome called the Caracalla, which were the ancient Roman baths, not far from the Colosseum. And symphony orchestras had played there, but certainly not rock and roll bands. And they decided that's where they wanted to play, and they sent me and one of the chief roadies, a guy named Mike Lowe, to Italy to talk to the promoters and anyone else we had to see if we could get to play the baths in Caracalla. But of course, we got there and we talked to everybody, and it was totally impossible. They were not at all interested, especially a band that was loud in an ancient site. No, it wasn't going to happen. We ended up playing in open air stadiums. You have to understand, back then, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, I'd been with them in America where they were big, but in Europe, they were mega big, huge. So we played in very large indoor arenas or in outdoor stadiums. In Rome, we ended up playing in an outdoor stadium. I'll tell you about the Rome gig later on. In the meantime, I'm in Europe. We're preparing, and we start off in Germany, and we spend 2 weeks in Germany rehearsing, getting ready, because one of the first big shows we're going to do is in Berlin. Now, second on the bill on this tour is J Geils. D. Anthony didn't lose his involvement with Emerson, Lake and Palmer when Stewart took over as manager. He continued being involved with the band, helping out in America, and of course, the band agreed to take Giles on their first European tour as the opening act, and Dee was more than happy, and we remained close, and it was a trip, man, greeting Giles in London and taking them around. They had never been to Europe, and it was really a cool experience. So we're in Germany, and we've now prepared, and we're ready to go on to our second show, which is in Berlin. And Berlin in 1972 was a city of intrigue. The Berlin Wall was up. There was a lot of tension, but it was also a great rock and roll city. So, all right. And of course, we were playing in West Berlin. All right. The second show would be in Berlin at the Deutschland, a building built primarily for Hitler's 1938 Summer Olympics. Berlin was a divided and tense city in 1972. The concert sold out, but didn't go well. Something went wrong with the onstage monitors. An ELP came off stage, unhappy and angry. However, the crowd absolutely loved the show and was going wild. The foot-stomping began. The audience wanted an encore. I noticed fire hoses lined up in the back of the hall on my way into the dressing room where the band members were sitting by themselves sulking. Again, Deutschlandhalle, Berlin 1972. No joke. I told them they needed to get back on stage. No encore, Greg said, taking the lead. What was I going to do? I went out to tell the promoter, who was waving his hands wildly and shouting, "Where are they? Where are they?" No encore, I told him. He went nuts. "They have to do an encore. The people won't leave. You have seen the hoses. The riot police are on the way." As crazy as it sounded, he was telling me that the hoses would be turned on the crowd, and we were at an indoor venue. Rushing back to the dressing room, I saw to my horror what looked like a small army of helmeted German stormtroopers moving in. Out of breath and as calmly as I could, I explained the situation. Craig said he understood, but there would be no encore. I ratcheted up my insistence and pointed out the press consequences of not going on. That got their attention. And I went on to explain that any damage done to the venue, or our equipment for that matter, would be an additional huge expense. I could see they were considering going back on stage. My final plea was on behalf of the fans. In the end, the band didn't want to see anyone get hurt. And to the delight of the audience and the relief of the promoter, they played the encore. Scary experience. I mean, you have no idea how scary an experience like that was. But we got through it, and I learned a lesson, and I'm not sure what the lesson was. I guess that I had to be very firm with the group and look out, for everything. That was my job, knowing what was going on and make sure the band was happy, but also making sure that the crowd was happy and nobody got hurt. And, that's the way it was as a road manager. So we went to Rome later in the tour, right? And I'll tell you about another funny experience that's not in the book. We went to Rome later in the tour, and as I said, we were playing an open air stadium. I think about 35,000 people. It was a football stadium. I don't remember the exact name, but at any rate, we went to Rome, stayed in a beautiful hotel. I think it was the Cavalieri Hilton, which is on one of the 7 hills in Rome. And D. Anthony actually came because J Geils was on the bill and D loved Rome and whatever. And it was a lot of fun being with D. Anthony in Rome because he took us out to his favorite restaurants and this and that. And that was great. We partied a lot before the gig, and Greg developed laryngitis. I mean, bad laryngitis, and I had to get him a doctor. And of course, the doctor said he couldn't perform, and we had to postpone the gig. Now, fortunately, we had an extra night, and the stadium was available, so we were able to do that. But the crowd was not happy, and people gathered outside the hotel, and the police. And again, it was another one of these crazy situations. But it was okay. Next night came, we went, we did the gig, and it went unbelievable. I mean, people went nuts, sold out crowd, people went nuts, went back to the dressing room, everyone was happy. And the Italian promoters were these 2 guys, Francesco and Franco. And I'll tell you more about them later. They were these crazy, crazy guys, man, young guys. And Francesco or Franco, one of them was real good looking, and they always had chicks in fancy cars. And I'm telling you, actually, one of the gigs, they made a deal. Instead of paying the band, each one plus Stewart got a Lamborghini. I mean, incredible stuff went on with them. At any rate, though, we did the gig ended, and we couldn't get out of the dressing room. The fans had gone nuts. They surrounded the entrance, out of the dressing room, out to our cars. Couldn't get out. Big problem. Didn't know what to do. And of course, they laid the problem on me. And I went to Francesco and Franco and said, "What are we going to do, man? The group is..." Then they come up with the brilliant idea. Well, we'll bring an ambulance. We'll get an ambulance and we'll park it in the back and that. And so that's what they did. Fooled nobody, obviously. And we all piled in the ambulance, and the siren's going. And we start to ride, and the ambulance gets surrounded. And it got scary, man, shaking the ambulance and this and that. And of course, they're screaming at me. And I don't know what to do. And fortunately, the police were alerted. They came, they cleared the way for us, and we got in. But those are the kind of problems that a road manager of a popular band had to deal with back in the day. All right, so that's that. Now I'll continue on with my reading. Later during the tour, before our show in Paris, because of course we also play Paris, Johnny Halliday, the French Elvis, came to our hotel to say hello. I was intrigued to hear about the way he toured. Much like a circus, Johnny, his musicians and crew, traveled with their own venue, along with everything else they needed to put on a show. Their tent went up just outside of whatever town they were booked in, making the tour completely self-contained and ending the need for outside companies. I really like Johnny Halliday. and you could look him up. He was truly the French Elvis, and he worked with various American rock stars. Mick Jones from Foreigner actually started his career with Johnny Halliday and his girlfriend at the time, French actress Sylvie Vartan. At any rate, Johnny and I got along real well. We spent the afternoon in the George V Hotel in Paris. Really fancy, really cool hotel. And I was intrigued at how he did these things. And again, he liked me, I liked him. By the end of the day, he asked me to join him as his tour manager, but I wasn't going to leave. But I really latched on to the idea of how he toured. And I like the idea of having everything in-house. Most groups had their sound, lighting, trucking, and staging all done by different vendors. This could and did get confusing and expensive. As ELP's tours grew more and more complicated, I couldn't get the idea of an all-in-one company out of my mind. And, you'll see that eventually I did create that all-in-one company. And I'll go back to some more war stories with ELP as well. But that's about it for today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, next week I'm going to get into how that idea percolated in my mind and how a phone call from my old friend Putty again, who had helped me get into white trash. She was now married to Peter Watts, who was the sound man and road manager for Pink Floyd, and it goes on for there. But you'll have to come back next week to hear that story. All right, that's it for today. Let me give you a little. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you somewhere, Facebook, Rock Doc's Medicine Cabinet on iHeartRadio on the weekend. At any rate, have a great week, and I'll see you next week. And remember, keep on rocking. Bye now.